It's movie time, and today we're diving into a film that is as unsettling as it is ingenious. Jennifer Kent's 2014 psychological horror, The Babadook. Kent's journey into the film world began with her acclaimed short film Monsters in 2005, which shares thematic and stylistic similarities to The Babadook. Director Jennifer Kent holds the rights to the film, and when asked if she would ever make a sequel, she said, I will never allow a sequel to be made because it's not that kind of film. I don't care how much I'm offered, it's not going to happen. Which is rare in these days of milking any IP available in hopes of returning some kind of profit over good storytelling. This movie was recommended to me by a couple of people and was ranked top 20 of the scariest movies ever. The Babadook is one of those rare films that manages to be genuinely scary without relying on cheesy jump scares or convoluted plots. Instead, it digs deep into the psychological horror of grief and motherhood. The story follows Amelia, a widowed mother struggling to raise her son, Samuel, who is convinced that a sinister entity is lurking in their house. That entity, of course, is the Babadook Dook Dook, a creepy, shadowy figure that emerges from mysterious children's books found in Samuel's bookshelf. When I was first introduced to the plot driver of this children's book, my first thought was, what parent in their local bookstore is thinking, wow, this would be a great story to tell my child that's scared of monsters? Also, what publisher would read this and go, it's perfect, don't change a thing? But I don't think people are going to buy it. I know what we're going to do. We're going to sneak into people's homes and plant it on their bookshelf. It's called guerrilla marketing, baby. Get with it. Even if the book just showed up out of nowhere on my child's bookshelf, the least I would do is thumb through the pages before reading it. But whatever. It's a horror movie, suspension of disbelief and all. Let's start with the characters. First, we have Amelia, played masterfully by Elise Davis, a woman grappling with the loss of her husband and the exhausting demands of single parenthood. Amelia is our central figure, and oh boy, does she have a lot on her plate. She's a widowed mother struggling with the daily grind of single parenthood while wrestling with the ghost of her late husband. Picture a woman who's exhausted, emotionally drained, and on the brink of a breakdown. Now put her in a horror movie where the spooky stuff is less about ghosts and more about her own psychological demons. Amelia is a character you can't help but feel for. Her life is a train wreck of grief and stress, and Davis nails the role with the intensity that makes you feel every bit of her anguish. Her portrayal of a mother on the brink of both heart wrenching and horrifying. Next, we have Samuel, her son. He is the classic case of, why do you have to be so damn annoying? But in a way that makes sense given the film's context. Honestly, the first half of the film just feels like a commercial on the importance of safe sex. As the film progresses, it leaves you wondering if Samuel is just a demon spawn of Dennis the Menace and Calvin McAllister from Home Alone, or does Samuel understand the assignment of protecting his mother with the limited resource he is given? Samuel, played by Noah Wiseman, is the kind of kid who might make you question the notion of innocent children. He is quirky, anxious, and convinced that there is something lurking in the dark. His behavior might drive you up the wall at first. He's loud and he's paranoid, with imaginative outbursts that seem to come out of nowhere. But don't let that fool you. His fears and energy are the key part of the film's psychological tension. Samuel isn't just another troubled child. He's a reflection of Amelia's own inner turmoil, and his desperation for his mother's attention and protection only adds to the film's intensity. He's a good kid at heart that will do anything to protect his mom, even stab her in the leg when that's what it takes. This film had me going from, wow, this kid is really annoying, to give that little man a Medal of Valor for being the smartest and bravest kid I've ever seen in a horror film. Yeah, he lets his emotions get the better of him sometimes, but it's always for the honor and integrity of his family. Samuel portrays the classic may seem crazy to you, but it's not until you walk a mile in their shoes that everything becomes clear. Kind of like those audio stereograms from the 90s. The only way to see the picture is to unfocus your eyes and trust the process. Then there's the big bad himself, the Babadook. It's a fantastic piece of horror design, dark, unsettling, and almost childlike in creepiness. Let's not forget the role of the Babadook's book, the catalyst for all the mayhem. It's not just a creepy storybook, it's a grim, twisted piece of horror that seems to have a life of its own. It's the kind of thing you'd find in a thrift store that you'd probably wish you left on the shelf. The book's illustrations and dark narrative are the perfect setup for the psychological horror that unfolds, making it a character of its own right. The book within the film is a work of art. Its illustrations are grotesque and haunting and setting the tone for the dread that follows. Side note, whoever made this book, mwah, chef's kiss. It's like a fine steak. Less is more, and without the subtleties, can easily turn a delicacy into tough leather. The Babadook himself isn't just a monster, it's a manifestation of Amelia's unresolved grief and trauma. It's this psychological depth that sets this film apart from your typical supernatural horror film. The tension in the Babadook is palpable. It's not about what you see, but what you don't see. And honestly, I'm kind of leaning towards what I don't see. When the Babadook is shown in full form, it took me out of the movie. He moves like a cockroach that was just gassed with a full can of Raid until it felt light. There's a scene when the Babadook is moving towards Amelia, and it just kind of looks like he's on a hoverboard. He's basically old Greg's younger emo brother.
You know what that is? That's old Greg's vagina. I got a mangina. I'm old Greg.
If there was a Snyder cut of this movie that came out without actually showing any of the Babadook, I'd be fine with that. That being said, Kent excels in creating an atmosphere of dread through the clever use of sound and silence. The film builds its scares slowly, allowing the fear to seep into your bones rather than hitting you over the head. But what it really impresses me with is the set design. The primary setting of the Babadook is Amelia and Samuel's house, and let me tell you, this place is a character in its own right. The house is meticulously designed to be catastrophic and oppressive. The rooms are dark, cluttered, and in a constant state of disarray. It's not just the backdrop, it's an active participant in the storytelling, reflective of the chaos and psychological decay of the inhabitants. The living room, for example, is a masterpiece in subdued horror. It is dimly lit, with shadows that seem to creep in every corner. The furniture is old and worn, and adding to the feeling that the house itself is a relic of Amelia's past, a past that she is desperately trying to move on from. The dingy, outdated wallpaper and minimal color palette set the stage for an environment where nothing feels quite right. It is as if this house is festering along with Amelia's grief, creating a sense of unease that permeates every scene. Samuel's room is another prime example. It's cluttered with toys and oddities that mirrors his turbulent mind. The space is filled with bright, children-like decor that contrasts sharply with the dark themes of the film, highlighting the unsettling nature of his fears. It's a place where innocence and terror collide, making every corner feel like it might harbor something sinister. And let's not forget the basement and the attic, the two areas that are basically the film's equivalent horror movie of no go zone. The basement and the attic are both dark and grim, almost like a physical manifestation of Amelia's fear and frustration. These spaces are used sparingly but effectively, adding to the film's atmosphere of dread. The house feels alive with tension and despair, and its design amplifies the film's themes of isolation and emotional turmoil. It's not just about creating a creepy setting, it's about creating a world that reflects and enhances the internal struggles of its characters. One of the most impressive aspects of The Babadook is how it handles its themes. It's a film about dealing with the darkness within oneself and the ways in which grief can consume a person if left unchecked. The Babadook is less of a literal monster and more of a metaphor for the emotional struggles Amelia faces. It's smart, thought provoking, and takes the horror to a new genre. And there you have it, The Babadook, a masterclass in psychological horror and a perfect example of how to make a truly terrifying film. If you haven't seen it yet, I highly recommend you do. But maybe keep the lights on. Trust me, you'll thank me later.